As the investigation of Russia expands, we have some insight on Vladimir Putin from his former travel partner in Tampa Bay.
I never planned on this, it just happened.
Plus, we'll show how your homeowners association could be tracking your driving. And we'll put Rick Baker to the test in the St. Pete race for mayor. This is Money, Power, and Politics. Well, President Trump said he respects the special investigation of his campaign in Russia, but then he called it a witch hunt. So the White House is caught up in a growing list of contradictions. But remember, Trump has a long history of contradicting himself and then working through it.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely.
She's married to a man who got impeached.
They tried to impeach him, which was nonsense. They're here illegally. You take them, they have to go back.
We have to show some compassion.
Right.
We just can't throw everybody out.
Donald, true or false, you've said the government should pay for everyone's health care.
That's false. Everybody's got to be covered.
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody.
Who pays for it?
The government's going to pay for it. I'm the only one on the stage that said we should not go into Iraq.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so.
But now the shifting stories over Comey and the investigation have bruised the White House. Meanwhile, the decision to hire special counsel eclipsed reports that Trump shared highly classified information with the Russians. Okay, please welcome Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, who was a former U.S. Army Commander of Special Forces, as well as a senior advisor on counterterrorism for the Bush White House and Pentagon. Thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.
So do you have any qualms with the president disclosing highly classified information to the Russians if that's in fact what he did?
If that's what he did, sure, we have concerns. I mean, people put their lives on the line to gather this information, and our allies in this case, which is what's being alleged, put their operatives on the line to gather this information that keeps us all safe. But, you know, what I am really focused on is a National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, with an impeccable career of integrity that has spoken against, has really written the book on speaking truth to power, standing up before the nation twice and saying, not only did the president not disclose sources and methods, he didn't even disclose information that could be led to that. So, I mean, I place a lot of weight on that, but what I'm concerned about is our officials within our intelligence community who either disagree with the president's agenda or disagree with what they believe he said, and are now running, rather than voicing those disagreements through proper channels, are now going to the media.
How do we know the original sourcing on this was not the Russians themselves?
We don't know that it wasn't the Russians themselves, and I think this could be part and parcel to their overall campaign that they call active measures, which is to sow chaos in an opponent's political system.
Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, thank you for your time.
All right, thanks so much.
Yeah, Vladimir Putin has certainly caused disruptions here, and if you want to know what he's thinking now, we have some insight from a Pinellas County man who knows him well.
These are just two little tourist metal plates.
Carl Cutler got those little plates years ago from a friend in Russia. They were gifts from a young man who was nearly broke, named Vladimir Putin.
He counted his pennies to buy this for you.
Back then, that probably would have been $1. They were pennies. That is about all he could afford.
Cutler's known Putin longer than just about anyone in America. As a college administrator, Cutler traveled to the Soviet Union back in the 80s. And this guy picked up his luggage.
And the man that met me at the airport that carried my suitcase was Vladimir Putin. Nobody knew him at the time. He had just come back. It was his first assignment from the KGB from Eastern Germany.
KGB, did he sneak into the bag, rummage through it?
Well, I was briefed before I go. The KGB is alive and well.
So Putin's first mission may have been to keep tabs on Cutler, and they've kept tabs on each other ever since.
Picture.
Cutler ran St. Petersburg College in Florida, while Putin worked at St. Petersburg University in Russia. They built an exchange program together. And in a speech, Putin said his relationship with Cutler helped to fuel his rise to power.
That moment he said, I kind of embellished that trip a little bit, followed up on it. As a result, I got a promotion from the university to vice mayor, and of course that put me on the path of leadership to the president of Russia.
And so Putin asked how he could return the favor.
And I said, someday I would like to meet Gorbachev.
Putin got him a 3-hour sit-down dinner.
It was just an outstanding moment in one's life.
And when Vladimir Putin took over Russia, U.S. officials showed up at Cutler's store to try to get some scoop.
Well, you know, everybody just wanted to know who he was.
Well, Cutler says he was the kind of guy who leaves nothing to chance and always thinks ahead.
He was a master of detail. If he told you he would do something, he did it yesterday. It was well planned. It was researched.
He says Putin also places a high value on friendship, so he wants President Trump to get to know him as he did.
I believe that Trump would be wise giving that friendship a serious try, and I believe that Putin will do likewise.
Of course, he also knows a lot of people in America don't trust Putin for good reason. His critics see him as a bully and a war criminal with a knack for making his rivals disappear.
His military has launched missiles, cluster bombs from Grozny to Aleppo on hospitals, markets, and schools.
Well, just as I mentioned, that's not the Putin that I know. It's not the one I experienced. Putin has tried to restore to the Russian people a sense of pride. He made Russia great again.
His detractors would say he gave his people a sense of fear.
He gave that too.
Cutler says we don't have to trust him or even like him.
When you have a friend, you go further than without friendship.
Because if we could work with Stalin to beat common enemies in the past, Cutler says we can surely work with Putin to beat them now.
My dream and my prayers are that we can put aside that which has separated us and build on it, and for the sake of peace for the world.
Now, coming up, your homeowners association can follow you beyond your home and even hit you with bad driving fees. Merissa Lynn will dig into that. Plus, we'll put former Mayor Rick Baker of St. Petersburg to the test in the St. Pete race for mayor. Did you know your homeowners association can fine you for traffic violations? Speeding, for example, could violate the covenants, and Merissa Lynn is here to show us why.
Yeah, so a lot of people, like you see behind us, they think that rolling through a stop sign is okay. They don't see a police, so hey, no big deal. Well, the couple that you're about to meet found out the hard way. They found out that they can get a violation for rolling through a stop sign without a police officer there to see it. They had no idea that their homeowners association could fine them for running a stop sign until they received the invoice from their property manager.
I made a mistake. I admit it.
Rachel Bagby and Charles Rivers both say their homeowners association fined them for rolling through a stop sign.
I'll admit I was wrong. I'm not perfect. I'm human.
You know, at the end of the day, we did, the violation.
They admit they were wrong for not coming to a complete stop, but neither one of them expected what happened next. They each got fined $100, not from a police officer, but from their homeowners association. And Florida law allows HOAs to fine tenants for breaking the rules, and that includes running stop signs.
This can be particularly helpful in communities that are gated or otherwise not easily accessible for the police officers to regularly patrol.
Excelsior is the HOA that governs Rivers and Bagby's gated community in Riverview, and it keeps an eye on residents who commit traffic violations like running a stop sign. It also keeps a recording. This dash cam video shows Rivers running a stop sign after entering the neighborhood, and it follows him all the way back to his home.
It's uncomfortable to have strangers filming your loved ones that, you don't know who they are, who's regulating them. I mean, if it were a law enforcement or a licensed private investigator, right, they have certain guidelines and rules they have to follow. I don't know where their parameters end.
Bagby says when the same thing happened to her, she became worried about the safety of her family, including the couple's 7-month-old daughter, Ryland.
A man in an unmarked vehicle that I've never met before is following me. I'm getting my daughter out of the vehicle. What would someone think?
The couple believes the video intrudes on their privacy, but Florida law allows it, and Melton says the HOA uses it for evidence.
If you have videotape evidence, that prevents it from being a he said, she said situation to allow that committee to make an informed decision.
Rivers and Bagby can appeal their violations, but since it's caught on tape,
there's not much they can say.
I was told they do not give any type of warnings. They are here to strictly listen to what I have to say.
For now, they'll pay the violations, but they have some advice for anyone who lives in an HOA community.
Not everything is going to be put in the covenants, obviously, or in your lease. So I think it's important to maybe pose those questions, talk to the community, talk to the people, the neighbors that you potentially may be living next to, and ask them what they're experiencing and really get a feel for that. I wish that maybe we would have done that ahead of time.
Now, Melton agrees, make sure you know the covenants. You are your own best advocate. The HOA says it sent out mailers and put up a poster outside the mailroom warning those drivers.
Fascinating. Where does all the money from all these fines go?
So Melton says that the money goes toward better stop signs, improving the signage in the area, the stop signs, any signage that you see in the neighborhood, it says it goes to bettering that.
Very interesting. Thank you for that. Now, coming up, we still have a lot of ground to cover. The commission that drives big changes to our state constitution is facing some controversy. We're going to go one-on-one with Chairman Carlos Beruff, and we have a battle in St. Pete of mayor versus former mayor Rick Baker. Tells us why he wants his old job back. You said you're a neophyte in this process. I learn every day. It's sort of like Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
so I have a new and exciting day every day.
Yeah, it's called a sense of humor.
We put Carlos Beruff to the test last year when he ran for U.S. Senate.
ISIS has a presence in Australia?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And when we pushed him to explain his proposed travel ban across the Middle East.
What about Africa? You also have Al-Shabaab in Somalia. You have Boko Haram in Nigeria.
Well, I think it's a global problem.
But if you cover Middle East, would you also not cover the continent of Africa as well?
I haven't given it much thought.
We discovered he does not like to be pushed.
You're pushing, you know.
Well, I am pushing.
You're pushing an agenda. It's
trying
ISIS.
to find out where you draw.
It's ISIS. It's ISIS.
After some feisty interviews with us, Beruff got crushed by Senator Marco Rubio in the Republican Senate race. But Governor Scott picked him for what may be a more powerful position this year. Beruff is now leading the commission to revise our Constitution. It meets every 20 years and puts amendments directly on the ballot, bypassing the petition process and the legislature.
Okay, well, please welcome Carlos Beruff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And you are leading the most powerful unelected body in the state. Have you ever done anything of this magnitude?
No. The short answer is no.
You've also faced some controversy from advocates of open government over the current rules, whereby 2 members of this commission can discuss business without having to keep records of it, without having to involve the public. Do you think that should change?
Well, first of all, those rules are in existence in Tallahassee today. I don't understand.
It's a legislative agency. This would be an executive agency. Why not follow the way that the Revision Commission had done it years ago, 20 years ago and 20 years before that?
Well, because from my perspective, this is a different Florida than it was 20 years ago. We have 5 million more Floridians. We have the internet. We have Facebook. We have all of these things that didn't exist. And you need to be able to communicate your thoughts clearly.
But why do it less openly now?
Well, we haven't decided that. That still hasn't been adopted by the rules committees.
Which
I mean, that goes up next week.
That brings us to one of the other controversies, though.
Correct.
You have not created and implemented and approved all the rules that will determine exactly how measures are rejected or approved. Why conduct these meetings until you know what the process
Because all we're
will
doing
be?
is listening to Floridians. It has nothing to do with the structure of the committees or the CRC in general.
Some, including the House Speaker, say you got started too early because when you have meetings before the legislature wraps up, you're disenfranchising, says the Speaker, roughly 1/6 of the commission who's got to work in Tallahassee.
I can't run my committee on their schedule.
Well, the committee 20 years ago started in June. Why not start in June when their schedule, which long predates this one?
It's my choice, what can I tell you?
But why would you make that choice?
Because I wanted to get out, because I want to have, the last time 20 years ago, they didn't have as much outreach to Floridians as we're going to have.
Now, you've said you're not going to waste time on measures, proposals that couldn't clear a 60% threshold and therefore couldn't pass, right?
That's a waste of the taxpayers' money and their time. So
how do you know, though, what would pass in the future and what wouldn't more than a year down the road?
Well, when we get to that point in the first quarter of 18, I think as a committee, we'll come up with things that we want to test. And we'll have it tested to see what the Florida voters think.
Test them by polling?
Yeah.
Now, you know the polls have been wrong. They were very wrong. If you go by the polls, Donald Trump would not be president today. Maybe Jeb Bush would be. Maybe you would be in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, but no. I mean, the polls are really accurate within 2 or 3 or 4%. But when you're talking about a presidential race, 2 or 3 or 4% makes a big difference. When you're talking about a 60%, as you know, this committee will put things on the ballot. It needs a 60% approval rating. That's a big number. So if it's not north, then why waste our time?
Mr. Beruff, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now, in just a moment, former St. Pete Mayor Rick Baker will take the hot seat next. And in the interest of disclosure, Baker appointed me to 2 nonpartisan commissions. I served on the Planning Commission and City Beautiful Commission in his administration. And now Baker wants his old job back.
That I'm running to be the next mayor of the city of St. Pete.
Former Mayor Rick Baker is trying to take down current Mayor Rick Kreisman. Baker is blaming Kreisman for failures with the city's sewage system and accusing him of wasting money.
It's maybe because I didn't have an extra $125,000 to throw away.
Mayor Kreisman says crime is down under his leadership, jobs are up, and the sewage system is getting fixed.
We've done this without increasing taxes, and in fact have been named one of the 23 best cities in the country for how we manage how we're managed fiscally, and the #1 in the state.
Okay, please welcome former Mayor Rick Baker. Thank you for your time.
Craig, it's good to be here.
Let's start with a tongue-in-cheek tweet from the current Mayor Rick Kreisman. I am hereby barring Donald Trump from entering St. Petersburg until we fully understand the dangerous threat posed by all Trumps. Mayor Kreisman doesn't like the travel order from the president, nor does he like President Trump. Do you approve of the job President Trump is doing?
You know, I am not going to make, there's going to be attempts to make this a partisan campaign. There's going to be attempts to make this a national campaign or a state campaign. This is about the city of St. Pete. I'm not going to get into that.
Can you tell us if you voted for Mr. Trump?
I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into the national political issues of
But
this.
you've done that
This is
time
a
and time
mayor's
again.
race.
You supported Herman Cain for president in 2011. You, time and time again, have supported and gotten involved in presidential politics. Why
I've been
not
involved
now?
I've been involved in elections for Democrats. I've been involved in elections for Republicans.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with this campaign. It has nothing to do with how we move the city forward. I am going to focus on moving the city of St. Petersburg focus, because if we get diverted, if we try to divide, then what we're going to do is we're going to continue to make the same mistakes we've been making.
Let's talk about crime. What about Mayor Kreisman's choice of a police chief? Do you agree with it? Who would you have picked?
Well, I didn't have the choices in front of me. I've met with the police chief. I like him.
Do you regret, during your years of mayor, not signing a proclamation celebrating the largest gay pride festival in the state of Florida and not attending the events?
I don't have any regrets. I take the decision.
So if you had it to do over again, you wouldn't?
Can I answer the question? I don't have regrets. I take every decision as it comes, and then I move forward. So I don't look back. But I looked. Now I have to decide where I'm going to move forward, going from here, and going forward with the Pride Parade. I would find a way to. I've been trying to find a way to reach out to the community. I'm going to continue to do that. I did that in my announcement, acknowledging that I think the LGBT community is a very important part of our community, and it's part of being a seamless city. And as far as the event is concerned, I will find a way to issue some sort of a welcoming proclamation to the event.
And if you had a do-over as mayor, you would or would not have?
I don't do do-overs. I just move. I look forward.
The sewage crisis erupted on Mayor Kreisman's watch. It fell on his shoulders, but we've had an antiquated sewage system for many years. More than 35 years ago, the big story was a spill at the Albert Whitted plant. Is there anything more that you or other administrations could have done leading up to what happened last year to make sure that our sewage system is in better repair than it is?
That's a great question, because there's a lot of misinformation about that. Right before I took office in 2001, there was a major spill, right? And we wound up being in a DEP consent order that we had to fix the system. So beginning in 2001 through 2010, I invested $160 million of money into water and capital improvements to our sewer system and our water system throughout the city. By the time I left office, we were off the DEP consent order, and in 2010, the city was named the best maintained wastewater system in the state for the big cities. in 2015 after he closed the Albert Whitted plant. 4 months later, we dumped 50 million gallons into the bay. We hadn't had a spill in 16 years. So I think we did a good job maintaining the system and doing it. I wish it had continued.
Mayor Kreisman has been working for some length of time to bring a Cuban consulate to the city of St. Petersburg. Would you continue those efforts or put them to a stop?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that. I haven't made a decision on that.
If elected, the first thing you would change in the city of St. Petersburg would be?
I would look at how quickly and how much it would cost to reopen Albert Whitted plant.
Mayor Baker, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
Former Mayor Baker, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We also invited Mayor Kreisman, and he agreed to join us next month. Okay, coming up, we're going to drill into the plan to replace Obamacare in Congress. Well, next week, we're still going to hear a lot about former FBI Director James Comey and the investigation, what memos there may be. But there is another big story to watch next week on Capitol Hill, and it goes right back to Obamacare because we're expecting a CBO score. In other words, projections of how much the Republican plan to replace Obamacare will cost, how many may lose coverage as well. Check out our YouTube channel, by the way, for extended interviews and prior shows you may have missed. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe at the top of the page, folks. That's our show. We will see you again next week. Take care and have